I'm so pumped to be able to return to the sport of water polo today and off the podium, because it's actually been quite some time since we've had a guest on from water polo, but we've got a great guest on today to learn about the sport, his career, and everything that's coming up for the Paris Olympics. Competed at the Tokyo Olympics, where he was a co-captain of the Aussie Sharks, and he's back once again for Paris doing the same job there, and we are very excited to see how the team goes. It's a pleasure to welcome off the podium Blake Edwards. Blake, first of all, welcome to Off the Podium.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here, mate, because it is a sport that, sadly we haven't had a lot of guests on from, but I love water polo. It's so entertaining. And I actually want to start off straight away. Time of recording this, we're barely 48 hours removed from, I want to say, the best reveal I have ever seen for an Olympic team. To literally have the Aussie Sharks revealed underneath sharks at an aquarium. I mean, that was epic, but congratulations. You're back on the squad for Paris. I mean, how are things going right now? Pumped and excited on the cusp of a second Olympics.
Yeah, super excited. It was quite a good experience being revealed in the Shark Tank. It's something that I think we'd planned to do last Olympics, had COVID not interrupted it. So yeah, being down there was good, and sharing that moment with 10 debutants is pretty special as well. Unfortunately, some of our teammates, young Miloš Maksimović, was a little bit petrified of sharks, so he was a little bit uncomfortable. And I think the project from Channel 10 took that opportunity to make a bit of fun of us. But no, it was a great, like as you saw with the photos, it was quite amazing. And the group's really excited to get overseas and compete.
Because I don't think there have been many reveals from Aussie teams, be it Olympics or not, where you are standing with your mascot. I don't ever remembering seeing like David Campese or George Gregan with a wallaby, or like, what even is a socceroo? Like, I think this is the only occasion I remember ever seeing with it. So, although, I do have to question, how does an Aussie shark be afraid of sharks? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I think not all of us, because I think a few of the boys would be disappointed they couldn't actually get into the shark tank with them. I think they brought their dogs hoping that there was an opportunity to go actually swimming with the sharks, but I don't think I would have been putting my hand up for that one. But no, it was great, and the photos, as you saw, just looked unreal, and they timed it well with the shark circling by in the background, and it's really cool, and I'm sure a few of the boys will get it blown up and hung up in the pool room one day.
Yeah, for sure. Great images, as you said, that timing of it. But as you touched on there, 10 debutants, yourself obviously coming back for your second Olympics alongside Nathan, of course, co-captain, and your brother as well, going back to a second Olympics there with Lockie. Just on that, we're obviously going to touch a little bit on the family lineage, but, to go to an Olympics by yourself, great, but to be able to go there with your brother, to two now as well. That must also be extra special for you coming up for Paris.
Yeah, it is. Lockie's got a huge role in the team, being the big man at centre forward, and he's got that ability as well to defend at centre back. So he's going to be super important for us. I've played a lot of junior water polo with Lockie. We know each other really well. We fight at the best of times, but he although I'm a few years older than Lockie, he's really looked after me, and hopefully feels like I've looked after him at times too. But yeah, for our whole family, I'm one of four boys, and I've also got two stepbrothers, and pretty much all of us played water polo at quite a high level too. So even for the boys, like my other brothers that didn't go to an Olympics, they've had a massive part in and influence in our careers and getting us to both Olympics. So really special moment for our family.
It's almost like a family business for you, isn't it? Your dad, a representative, played for the Sharks himself. So was this a case of you're born, you're kind of given a water polo bowl, you're put in the pool, you've given the cap? Like, is this kind of just from a young age, you're playing water polo, son, you've got no choice?
Well, Mum was a really good swimmer, and she did representative swimming for both Victoria and Australia. So we're actually kind of pushed into swimming from a young age, and my older brother, swam nationals in like 1500 and 400 meters right up until about 15 or 16 years old. So he transitioned into water polo a bit later. I took a fancy to it, I guess, like seeing the old like trophy cabinets that Dad had around the house and seeing all the water polo photos and trophies. It intrigued me. I always loved my like AFL, being grown up in Melbourne, and so loved my team sports, and swimming was obviously something that was really natural to me. So once I finally nagged Dad enough, he took me down to Melbourne Collegians for my first water polo session. I think I was trained at Xavier at that time, and from there it all, Lockie was this little 8-year-old that was coming along to training and watching and joining in whenever he could, and it really just took off from there.
Got to ask a quick question. You mentioned AFL. Who's your team, Blake?
Western Bulldogs. And
okay, not bad.
Dog supporter. The rest of my brothers are all Carlton.
They're very smart brothers then. I like your brothers. Let's get them on the show. Come on. How does that work? How do you have, usually it's like family, you kind of one team family, but how do you get different teams?
Yeah, so my father and his parents went for Bulldogs. They'd grown up, like my grandfather had grown up in Footscray back in the day. So I'd been a bit closer to Dad. I mean, always had a real interest in footy and in sport, and I'd often get if I was to actually go to the game, I'd have to go along with Dad, and so quickly became a fan of the Bulldogs. One of my brothers had started off at Bulldogs, but had got himself lost at the footy. So to get back on, my dad decided to jump ship to Carlton, and
wow.
Yeah, my brother Luke followed him after that too. So Lockie's a bit mutual. He'll say he's on the fence for both teams. More of a WWE fan than a AFL fan, but it's probably something that me and my old man share that close bond with our love and passion for the Bulldogs. So we've seen one premiership. Hopefully we can see another one.
I was going to say 2016, still fresh. The one AFL Grand Final I've ever been to in person, Blake, was 2016, and I have to say I was an honorary Dogs fan, and just you can't help but feel the emotion that you guys would have felt that day.
Yeah, you can't rub that one in too much because my poor daddy was born in 1956, so they played in the Grand Final that year against Melbourne and lost it. So he'd been waiting his whole life to go and see them win one, and I was over at USC with Lockie playing college water polo, and no one in that 2006 year thought that the Dogs were even going to make finals, let alone win it. So I took the trip over, and the poor bloke missed the grand final. He's never forgiven me.
Damn. I'll go back in time and I'll give that to him. I'd gladly do that. But just on your dad, do you know sort of his history in terms of what made him get into water polo? How kind of this, Edwards lineage kind of started in the sport?
Yeah, it's there's definitely no water polo background prior to Dad playing. He was part of the Cheltenham swim squad, and I think it was by the pool one day, and there was someone throwing a water polo ball, and just saw that Dad was taking an interest, got him in the water, started passing, and I think it started growing from there. So he was grew up playing for Melbourne Water Polo Club, who became Melbourne Collegians, that Lachlan and I both played our junior water polo with, and he was a club captain and captain of Victoria, who went on to win a national championships with them. I guess it kind of just started by chance there. I mean, it's usually the thing with water polo. If it's not family that's got you into it at school, or you've got a friend that has roped you along. It's a fantastic sport, and feel really lucky that I've had the opportunity to play it and had the travel opportunities that come along with it.
Because I was going to ask that in terms of just people getting involved in it, because if I'm not mistaken, sort of around that period when you took it up, a couple of years removed from Sydney, where the Stingers, of course, won gold. So I'm not sure if that saw an uptake in a lot of young kids, boys and girls, wanting to play the sport, seeing that success, or if it does, as you say, kind of a lot of it falls onto it's a family sport. This is what I'm going to get involved in.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of publicity around the gold medal match with the Stingers. I mean, I think I was probably a little bit too young at the time to remember that game. I think my first kind of Olympics that I remember where I was really invested in the sport. And then getting up in early hours to watch was more probably the Athens games for me. But obviously, prior to that, everyone knows and still knows about the Stingers and their gold medal game in Sydney. I mean, it's just the dream for every athlete to win a gold medal, especially under a golden goal in a home crowd in Sydney. Like, it's phenomenal. And I'm sure the Stingers and the Sharks that will participate in Brisbane will be hoping for a similar result when we get to host the games in Brisbane.
For sure. We were talking about that game recently on another episode, and the one image that always just stands out for me from that Sydney gold medal is, not the Stingers celebrating, it's the US coach, like when that goal went in, just like abusing the umpires, going like, that's bullshit. That's just my one lasting image of the American coach doing that way. The one obvious, I don't know if this is an obvious or a dumb question, Blake, like you come from a swimming background, you get into water polo. To me, as a casual observer of the sport, I'm going to go, well, that's pretty easy. You can swim, you pick up a ball, you throw it in a net. Simple. But obviously, it's not that simple. What are the biggest challenges from switching from swimming to water polo?
Yeah, it's a good question. Something that's probably misconceived quite a bit is, you think, if you're a swimmer, you can automatically play water polo. And you definitely can't play water polo if you can't swim. So I'll credit and acknowledge that. But there is, water polo is a really challenging sport because you've got to have so many different facets where you've got to be good in. You've got to have good game sense and knowledge and good vision. You've got to have good skill level. All of your power and stability in the water is driven and dominated from your legs, which is under the water. So I guess for someone who's spectating who hasn't got a background in water polo, there's that technical aspect that is probably underappreciated and not recognised, but is incredibly important. Whilst the pool is, in the men's competition is 30 metres long, you're covering areas, in attack and defence, which is often like a few metres apart. So how you move and I guess your efficiency through the water, through your breaststroke or egg beater kick, is really, really important. So that's where things like, flexibility and range of motion, two things that I probably battle with, to be completely honest with, is also really important. And you just need to look at the makeup of some of the best players in the world, and they're that really tall, lean, long limbs, super flexible players. So yeah, there is a bit more to it than just being able to swim up and down the pool fast.
Because I think it's one of those sports that if you really dive into everything what you're saying, it's so ridiculously physically demanding. And this is going to sound like a weird comparison, Blake, but I'm sure you'll get where I'm going with this. It's almost like artistic swimming, whereas it's a sport where you can watch and go like, oh, like what are they doing? They're doing some dancing in some water. That doesn't seem that hard, but it is brutal from what we have learnt on this show, what artistic swimmers have to do. And on a similar vein, everything that you're touching on there, like, you're doing all that in water. You're not standing on the bottom of a floor. You're having to keep afloat, swim, catch balls, do all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's got to be up there with one of the most physically demanding Olympic sports that are currently on the schedule.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you just got to look at the training schedule and demands of the sport, because you're touching on so many different fitness components in a sport. Like, you need the strength to be able to wrestle your opponent. You need the speed to be able to obviously get fast breaks and chase down opponents. You need, as I said, like the flexibility and mobility so that you can move efficiently through the water. And then you need the ball work and skill work. So our training schedules are really, really demanding. And as you said, you're not on a stable platform like you are on the land. You're in the water. So you're you're getting your balance, which is being created from your legs and from that egg beater kick that's happening underwater and the sculling. So you're never resting, unfortunately, in water polo unless you're on the bench, and you usually in the international game, you're on the bench for very long because you're trying to, like, the game's got really fast, particularly internationally, the speed of the game. So in order to keep that pace high, coaches are running a high number of substitutions. The sport's introduced a rule now where it's a bit like a hockey style where you can make substitutions from the side of the pool. So a lot of teams are capitalising on that now as well to keep that pace up and to rest some of their players that maybe physically are carrying a bit more weight and don't move up and down as well as other players. So yeah, there is a lot of tactics as well that's involved, but yeah, you're 100% right. It is an extremely difficult and physically demanding sport to participate in.
Which also then means that every day is leg day for a water polo player, essentially, what you're saying with the importance of the legs in the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. You just got to speak to any old retired water polo player, and the first thing they'll complain about is hips and shoulders that just get overworked and overused. I think, look, I've been in the sport for 20 years now, and I think it's come a long way in terms of load management and, I guess the advances of sports science and understanding the importance of flexibility and range of motion. So hopefully those kind of wear and tear injuries are starting to diminish a bit. But it's unfortunately it's one of the costs or barriers to entry is the carry with you dodgy shoulders and sore hips.
Is there a peak age for a water polo player? Like, are you right now in peak water polo age?
Oh, look, I'd say, game knowledge and experience is, something that just comes with time and playing a lot of water polo. So, I would say for the men, the women might be a bit younger when they mature, but I'd say for the men, it's probably like mid to late 20s. But, there's some players now that are close to 40 and still, like Felipe Peroni, for example, he's still in the top, 5 players in the world and doing some amazing things. So it's definitely a sport that you can have quite a long longevity in. I guess one of the advantages of being water-based is that you don't have the impact. So while we get wear and tear injuries, you can have quite a prolonged career if it's something that you want to do. A challenge that we do have here in Australia is that it is relatively an amateur sport. So unless you are playing professionally in Europe, unfortunately we lose a lot of our athletes probably in their mid to late 20s who start to go on to their professional careers outside of sport. So that's a bit of a disadvantage that we have as a national program in comparison to some of the Europeans that are participating in playing professionally right until their, as I said, late 30s to early 40s. So, and in tournaments like Olympics, with all the pressure and hype that's around them, experience can come a long way in getting desired result.
Which I asked that because I was working your age out for Brisbane. You touched on Brisbane, so you'll be nearly 40 by Brisbane, so doable. I'll
turn the volume down in case my partner Maddie hears that.
She's. I'll timestamp that so you can tell her to just skip that one.
We'll take it 1 year at a time at the moment. See what happens.
See what happens with that. You touch on sort of playing overseas. You've played right across the world. You and I were talking a bit off air about Montenegro, Brazil, Japan. The US, where you went off and played for a bit over there at USC, Go Trojans. Obviously, water polo, big deal in the US. What's that experience like playing in the USA compared to playing in a Montenegro or a Brazil or a Japan?
Yeah, good question. USC was just a life-changing experience for me. They've got some incredible funding through the athletics program. So it's probably the closest that you can get to being in a, professional environment that's, heavily funded by sports like NFL or college football and college basketball. So the facilities there were amazing, and the community support was just something that's really, really hard to describe unless you've kind of witnessed or experienced it yourself. There's been a lot of Aussies that have gone over and been part of the college program for that reason, because it's just the amazing experience. And then on the contrary, if my time in Montenegro, it was really good for my development because it was my first time being overseas, away from home, completely different culture and background, obviously, to what we have in Australia. And being in that professional environment really kind of gave me a different appreciation for, I guess, how like water polo is played, because playing in Australia, like as a junior player, your aspirations are to, make an Olympic team and represent your country. But predominantly you play the sport because it's fun. Whereas going over to those professional environments in Montenegro, you've got players that are playing for their livelihoods. So that being exposed to that environment was quite good, and I guess allowed me to deal a bit better with kind of, I guess, the pressures and expectations that come with international water polo.
Because I would just actually, before I get back to what you're just saying there, did you sort of have those aspirations on what you're saying, what Australians often will, of it's the Olympics, this is what I want to do? So when you started playing it, or was that something that sort of only came about when you were progressing through the ranks, getting on the national team and things like that?
Yeah, Olympics has always been, and for most Australians, it's a pinnacle for us. So, I mean, my father, as you mentioned before, represented Australia at World Championships, but he'd never made an Olympic Games. So since I was very young, that was always the ultimate goal for me, was to go to an Olympics. It definitely wasn't an easy journey there, and there were some disappointments, in not being selected. I was pretty young for the London cycle, but there was periods of time where I was involved, and then being young and ambitious, you always want to be there, and then there was a disappointment, being in and out of the squad of Rio and missing that close to the games there. So you do have moments of, I guess, a bit of self-doubt along the journey. But yeah, looking back, I'd say that was probably the main driving force, was trying to achieve something that my parents had just fallen short on achieving themselves.
On Rio, I was going to ask that, but you brought it up there. Sort of what happened around that cycle, and why weren't you at the Rio Olympics?
Yeah, I think I think probably my maturity level took a bit to develop internationally. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself and have a lot of expectations. So with that, when you put a lot of pressure on yourself, you're kind of you're probably not making decisions that you normally would make. So you're a bit more fearful of mistakes. You're maybe not taking opportunities or risks that you should be taking. As everyone, like kind of athlete, knows, if you're not enjoying it yourself, your performance is probably going to show at the same time. So there's probably a combination of things. There were some really good right-hand catch drivers, which is the position I'm in, that were playing that role really well at that time. But I think that my transition or decision to go to USC and play under a really tough coach and program. So Jovan Babic was the coach there. He'd won, I think, multiple. I think he'd won like 6 straight NCAA championships before we got there. I ran a really tight, system, and I guess being in that environment and constantly playing under adversity, I think I probably matured a lot more mentally, and being in that high pressure situation, high pressure training environment constantly, also probably elevated my game to another level. So, I think like with all like elite sports, sometimes it's a bit about your timing, who's kind of available. So there was a few players that dropped off after the Rio cycle, which opened up opportunities for me to I guess, cement my spot in the team, which I rejoined the Sharks in 2018, following like a shoulder injury in 2017. So yeah, went on, played the World Cup, which we won the silver medal on in I think it was in Berlin, and then 2019 we won the bronze medal at the World League Super Final. So I had a really successful cycle for that Tokyo journey. But yeah, I'd say that a lot of it was just around my own personal maturity as a player.
On that success, you touch on USC, your top goal scorer the first year you play for the Trojans. You're on the All-American first team. Do it again in 2016. You leave as the ninth all-time leading scorer for USC in 2017. And so much so is that, I guess, love that they have for you as well and for your brother is that I saw you shared the image that they posted during the week of them congratulating you on making the Olympics, which just, it's that sense of community and passion that you see from those American colleges that you were touching on before as well, that, once a Trojan, always a Trojan, right?
Yeah, it's an amazing alumni network at USC. I mean, I just remember when I was over there, you'd be walking through the airport, you're walking down the street, and if someone recognised USC, they'd give you the fight on, big fingers, I was a Trojan, class of 2000 or whatever it was. So, and it's the same with like their alumni network. If you want to try and get a job or employment somewhere in America or even here in Sydney, they reach out for fellow Trojans. So it was a sense of community that I definitely had never been exposed to. And yeah, as I said, even the way that they kind of just would support you and look after you and the families were just extremely generous in looking after each other. Yeah, it's a really special community. But yeah, like I was really fortunate to be able to get over to USC, and it really rejuvenated my career. I was obviously going through my own personal demons and battles around misselection with the Sharks at the time, and they welcomed me into the program with open arms and believed in me and gave me a lot of opportunities. So I was lucky to have a really big role in that program, and was given opportunities to captain in several years while I was there. And as I said, all of those things were just, I guess, like learning steps and allowed me to develop into the player I am now.
When it comes to that level of developing into captain, you captain the side Australia in the World University Games. So this is something obviously that, you got experience along that way. I mean, at what point does somebody tap you on the shoulder in your career and say, you've got captain potential? Or is this something that you are working towards it? Like, I would like to be a captain, so I'm going to show a certain way that potentially this could be a path that I'm going to be able to take.
Yeah, I've always had or found myself in leadership positions from a young age. I think a lot of that probably comes down to I'm pretty self-motivated and I guess hardworking person in really anything that I do. So I think those qualities resonate with coaches when I guess they're selecting their leaders and who they want the team to look up to. But I'm by no means perfect in my leadership role, and there's definitely a lot of areas of self-development that I'm continually trying to make and improve on every day. It's I think my greatest challenge has probably been leadership of the Aussie Sharks. I guess like as you get a bit older and you get a bit more mature, you start to, I guess, reflect a bit more on the way that you can really influence and impact your teammates. And I've done a lot of probably learning and research into leadership to try and improve that area. And I guess like a common theme that I'm starting to discover now is the importance of building relationships with your teammates and, not just being that kind of, I guess, like image or leading by example, but also taking the time to really show that you care about the people that you're playing with and building that strong bond and relationship, because it definitely does pay off, when you're playing for each other in the water.
And how much of that then do you work with Nathan? Like, are you sitting down with him constantly and kind of coming up with ideas of that and sort of bouncing some of that, together to make sure that you're kind of, as co-captains, you're always aligned?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, like we do regularly kind of chat and bounce ideas off each other. We have very unique, I guess, leadership styles, which I think complements each other. There's some areas, that, Nathan's really strong in, some areas where I might be a bit stronger in. But I think like kind of recognizing or having someone else to just kind of even to share the load with has been really helpful. Both Nathan and I have, careers outside of water polo, and relationships and families now that we're trying to balance. So being able to share some of that work, I guess the constraints and the loads of being captain with each other makes a big difference. But yeah, definitely, we'll have chats. We won't always agree on certain aspects of leadership. But yeah, we work quite well together.
Before I get to Tokyo, you mentioned it before, silver at the World Cup in 2018. Just in terms of the prestige of that tournament, like take us through what that is, because from what I'm seeing here, we haven't had a World Cup since 2018 in water polo. So, I mean, does that differ from a World Championships? Kind of like what's that tournament compared to World Champs or an Olympics?
Yeah, so I mean, they used to have like every fourth year or every second year have a World Championships, and then you also have the Olympics every 4 years, and then on the odd years you'd have a World Cup. So in terms of like importance of competition in water polo, you've got Olympics would be number one, followed by the World Championships, which is still happening, and then you have like World Cups and World League. So they'll have different forms of, I guess, like qualifications for those tournaments. So they used to have a World League where you play in the Intercontinental region, you play in the European region. 6 or 8 teams would then qualify from those two regions to make the World League finals and play in. So they have recently just changed the format on the World Cup, which like has only changed kind of the last year. Knowing World Aquatics, it may change again. But yeah, look, I guess for Water Polo Australia, any kind of medal in international competition is a huge achievement, given what we're up against. And I was really fortunate to play with some incredible players in that Tokyo cycle. Really experienced group of guys, and even at the World Championships, we had some really good results coming sticks at Guangzhou, and obviously winning the medals at the World League Finals and World Cup were really special moments for not only like me personally in my career, but also for Water Polo Australia.
Because it's no mean feat to get to the final there when you're knocking off Croatia. You're knocking off Germany in a penalty shootout. They're coming off the back of beating South Africa by like 3,000 goals. And then you take it up to Hungary to come away with a silver medal. And we obviously know how strong Hungary are in water polo. So, I mean, that is an achievement. So on that, what you're saying, like, is that sort of pinnacle highlight of sort of maybe your international career at least, sort of coming away with a silver from that World Cup?
Yeah, that tournament in Germany was just incredible. I mean, like Croatia had sent a very strong team. They had a number of Olympic gold medalists in the team and world champions that were playing. We were kind of during the tournament hoping to top the group and knock off Germany, but I think that we'd end up finishing not as high as we would have liked in that group. So we had a really difficult crossover with Croatia, which was a lot harder than the way that we had hoped it to have been. And then, to knock them off in that game was huge and was a bit of a shock to world water polo at the time. And then, obviously in the semi-final to come up against Germany, who were playing really good water polo at the time and playing really well in front of their home crowd. To win that one in a penalty shootout, I still remember just how overwhelmed everyone was with happiness and excitement when we won that. Unfortunately, in the final against Hungary, we probably didn't play our best game, but I think it was we'd really played our final in the 2 games prior, and there wasn't really too much left emotionally or physically for any of us in the tank for that game. But yeah, it was an extremely proud moment in that competition.
Speaking of proud moments, and we're going to touch on another Croatia game in just a moment, but getting to Tokyo, through everything that you'd sort of touched on, through missing out on London, missing out on Rio, everything you'd sort of overcome, I mean, what was that moment for you like, Blake, when you were officially confirmed for the Tokyo team and that you'd done it, you'd finally made an Olympic team? Yeah,
it was a lot of emotions came into me. It was a lot of also like second guessing whether, like you kind of have a bit of doubt, like, am I actually going? Like, is it a joke? Like, it was hard to, I guess, for it to sink in, and it took quite a while to sink in. You also at the time, I mean, like when we'd been notified, we'd also been notified of the players who hadn't made it, and for me, that was quite a bit of a mental trigger because I know what that feeling was like to miss out and that disappointment. So I was also feeling for some of my teammates who missed out. So whilst I was excited, I was also, really empathetic for what they were going through. But yeah, it was exciting because I mean, like I had such a great, I guess, cycle in terms of like the last 3 years, hadn't missed a team selection, things were going great, looking really good, and then a thing called COVID knocks on the door and the games is postponed. So there was all those like, I guess, triggers around that, and is it just not meant to be? Like, I finally got an opportunity, and then the games has been taken away. Doubt to whether Tokyo would even happen or not. So yeah, when that final team announcement was made, we'll get in our uniforms, we'll get in the Qantas tickets. I was just like overwhelmed with happiness and joy that I kind of stuck with it and finally achieved it.
What was the Edwards family dinner like prior to Tokyo with you and Lockie sitting around the dinner table and, hey, Dad, look where we're going?
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to remember what happened because it was obviously we couldn't get back home to Melbourne to celebrate with family. Like they were down in Victoria, we were in Canberra and living in Sydney at the time. I remember giving Mum a call, and she couldn't even talk. She was so emotional on the phone, and she couldn't even talk. I think Lockie, and I just gave each other a bit of a subtle nod and acknowledgement. Lockie doesn't like to, he's a bit different to me, doesn't like to get too emotional with me. So, we just kind of gave each other a pat on the back. And, I think just that the look in each other's eyes kind of said enough for us. And, he went through a similar situation and probably got a bit closer than I did in the Rio cycle. So, he was obviously very chuffed and really, I was really ecstatic for him at the same time for what he kind of overcame around his disappointments with selection for Rio too. So to be going and now to be going to our second together, it's really special, and it's something that I know that the whole family is really proud of.
We always like to hear stories around sort of outside of the competition side of things, Blake, the Olympic experience, obviously a unique game, Tokyo, we know in terms of just what, compared to a usual Olympics, but do you soak up things like pin trading, athlete spotting in the village, uniform trading? I mean, kind of like outside of the competition, how was sort of the whole Olympic experience for you?
Yeah, I'm really glad that I got to go to a couple of World University Games because I think a lot of those distractions, when you see it the first time, well, they do become distractions. And but I saw a lot of similarities between like the Olympics and World University Games. I'm sure that will probably be heightened to another level in Paris now, given that there's no COVID restrictions. You're going to have spectators and probably a lot more media around and things happening outside of the village. But look, it's important that you take an opportunity to, I guess, like smell the roses and really soak up the experience and the atmosphere. But you also got to remember that you're there you put all that hard work in to also perform. And so, I mean, thankfully for me, I think that, at Tokyo, I managed that quite well. And I didn't get too kind of caught up in all of the distractions that can be there, and was pretty just focused on my performance. And hopefully for Paris, I can replicate that.
One game that, I mean, I remember it vividly when it was on, and then just the news it was getting back here in Australia was the game against Croatia. In the second game, you beat Croatia 11-8, reigning Olympic silver medalist, gold in London, one of the best sides in the world. I mean, can you describe the emotions of beating Croatia at the Olympics? I mean, that must have been absolutely insane after that game, what you guys must have been feeling at that point.
Yeah, it was. We were on such a high after that game, and I remember just like getting out of the pool and just the phone blowing up. And then it was kind of the first time I realized like what scale the Olympics was in terms of like people viewing. You had primary school teachers that were coming out of the woodworks, like messaging, "Oh my God, I saw the game! Like, congratulations, we're so proud of you!" Like, all these things are like, it's like, water polo, it doesn't get much publicity in Australia, and I think for Tokyo, given the time difference, it was prime time that game, is my understanding. So,
Yeah.
nation really like had their eyes locked onto that game, and we were obviously a bit unaware of that being in the water and there being no crowds there. But as soon as we got there, it was as if there was like thousands and thousands of people outside the village, just getting around and supporting us. So we really did feel that support back home, and it'll probably be like one of the most memorable water polo games I think I'll ever play in my career. And yeah, hopefully we can experience something similar in Paris in a couple of months.
Because I don't think I can remember attention on water polo since the Stingers winning gold medal. I know obviously they went on to win a couple more bronzes in the Olympics, but they're in different time zones. It's not quite the same as a home Olympics and that, because it was just, that was the talk of the day. That was just everybody talking about, and a very successful Olympics for Australia. Like, that was such a huge deal. And I can imagine though at that point though too, Blake, that the confidence levels in that team, I mean, I'm not sure what your, hopes and expectations were going into that tournament were, but 2 games in, you've knocked off Croatia, I can imagine the confidence levels at that point were sky high for what else you could achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we literally that Olympic cycle beaten every team in the world except for Serbia. So we knew that our best was good enough to really match it with anyone. So that in itself gave us a lot of confidence. We were obviously very unsure where we stuck in terms of form. Being in Australia, locked down with COVID restrictions, we didn't get any international games for 18 months. So obviously coming off those really good international results in the years prior to Tokyo, where we had a lot of momentum, we went a year and a half without playing the game. So that created a bit of uncertainty for our team. And I think that showed probably in the first game. I mean, we actually went off against Montenegro to a flying start, but unfortunately dropped off in the second half, and they got away with a win there. Who unfortunately were the team to go ahead of us in the groups due to goal difference. But after that Croatia game, yeah, we were buzzing. We were thinking, we've just kind of warmed up against Montenegro. We've knocked off the reigning silver medalists from Olympics. Like, anything's really possible. And I think we had up next Serbia, who had won the gold medal at Tokyo, and they were, from all reports, pretty nervous about what they'd just seen, and were extremely prepared against us, and unfortunately came out and absolutely spanked us, and brought us back down to earth pretty quickly. So that was a bit difficult for us to handle, and then we played a really strong and informed team in Spain. Looking back and reflecting, I think all the players are probably still really proud of kind of the effort and the achievement, but bitterly disappointed at the same time, because we knew how good and how talented the group of players that we had were, and had our preparation been a little bit different, we think that maybe the outcome or overall result might have been a bit different for us at that games.
Because I remember that last game, was it like a 20-goal differential you had to make up or something like that? And you ultimately get eliminated because of goal difference to Montenegro, but I think Montenegro had a certain amount, you had an amount, and then they lose by 7 goals, and then for Australia to qualify, you'd have to win by 20 goals or something against Kazakhstan or something. But do you talk about that, or the maths? So this isn't completely impossible. Let's just go out and kick their asses.
Yeah, look, you can't. Unfortunately, you've got to, until the final whistle is blown, you've got to give it everything you can and believe that whatever the possibility is, that as little as it is, that there's still a chance. Unfortunately, we had to have gotten through one of the games against Spain or Serbia. It's just the way that the draw, I guess, had worked out and the results of the group. But I don't think anyone in the team will look back and go, we could have put in more effort. It's just one of those things in unfortunately a top end sport where it just didn't come together for us that over the whole week or over the whole competition. But as I said, I think we'll still look back on that Croatia game and be, really proud of that performance, and also look back on the cycle as a whole, because there was a lot of excitement just within the water polo Australia community about our particular team and the results that we were able to achieve in the years leading into Tokyo. So whilst unfortunately, like in the results and in the record books, we'll see the results of what that competition was. I think we'll go down as a team that Australia was really proud of, that represented at Tokyo.
In terms of then now, Blake, getting into Paris then, I mean, where are we at now? Obviously, coming into these Olympics, tricky group. They always are at the Olympics. There's only ever two groups in water polo, of course, but Serbia, the host, France, Hungary, Japan, Spain. I mean, kind of what's the mood like, expectations, things like that?
Yeah, it's obviously a very different makeup, like 10 debutants, as we spoke about. So we don't like in that Tokyo cycle, we had, multiple triple and four-time Olympians in that team, like really experienced squad. So, it's a very different makeup to what we've had in the past. But, I mean, from looking at the very first year out of Tokyo, 2022 to where we are now, I think we've come a long way as a team, and some of the younger players have gone over to Europe and got that international experience to really fast track their experience and knowledge. And it's an incredibly fast team, incredibly motivated and hungry team. And as I kind of touched on earlier in the podcast, the international results can be very close. It seems like, and sometimes just be moments in games and decisions in certain moments that dictate results. So we've just got to really take one game at a time, and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. And hopefully, if we're really process driven, and coming off the back of a 6-week tour prior to Olympics, we can really speed up to the pace and level as quick as possible and get ourselves through the group. Once you get through the group, it's really, it's pretty much elimination or knockout rounds from there, and anything's really possible beyond that.
I was going to ask about that quarterfinal barrier. I mean, not since London has Australia made the quarterfinals in men's water polo. So is that kind of, on what you're saying, bare minimum quarterfinals, and then pretty much whatever happens from there happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So you obviously go through the round robin stage in the groups. We've got some difficult teams, but really, like, I wouldn't say that you're better suited to one group or the other group. As I said, it's really going to be which team's in the most form and playing the best water polo on the day. If you look at previous results in the last two World Championships, you had Croatia playing a 9th versus 10th playoff game against us. And then in the most recent World Championships, a few months later, they win the World Championships. And then you've got three dropping from first down to 7th or 8th. So that's how close the competition really is. Look, as I mentioned before, we really just need to be really, worried about ourselves and where we need to improve on and what we need to do to play our best water polo, and the result will be the result. So, I think previous World Championships this cycle, we probably haven't had the best preparation when it comes to, games and competitions prior to the tournament starting. So I feel really confident that we're going to, that we get the opportunity to go on a 6-week tour. I think that's going to go a long way to bring us up to the level, and hopefully we can then play some really good water polo and get to Paris.
Well, I'm calling this out now. 1st of August, Australia versus host nation France. Just seen the last two World Championships here, Blake, that in both playoffs, France 11, Australia 8, 2 consecutive years in a row. So we've got some revenge, and what better way to do it in their home pool, right?
Yeah, they've become it's funny how it's worked out that way. That's the last two World Championships we've ended up crossing over with the French, and look, they're playing some incredible water polo at the moment. They got their best ever result on the international stage in Doha, making the top 4. But they're also a team that we feel that we play really well against, and back ourselves to try and upset them in their home pool in Paris. So that's something I know that all the boys are really excited about. But as I said, there's still other games in that group that we still need to get through and make sure that we play really well. So whilst we're looking at that game, we won't look too far ahead, and our very first challenge will be up against Spain in game 1.
Well, we're keeping an eye on how things go with that, and fingers and toes crossed. Now, but we like to wrap up all our interviews, Blake, with a set of get-to-know-yourself questions. There's a couple of quick things I want to touch on before we get that. I believe this year, the first time that your local team in the Australian Water Polo League, the Drummoyne Devils, won their very first ever championship on a national level. Tell us about this experience, because I believe they've come a little close a few times there and finally breaking through for the win.
Yeah. It was a really exciting moment for the club, for the Drummoyne club. So they first entered the league. They lost, I think, their first two seasons. They just fell short in the final. Lockie and I joined them in the 2018 season. We've had a couple grand final losses with them there, so we have fallen just short. But yeah, to win the first championship for the club was just amazing, and the whole Drummoyne community is still celebrating. I think they've got a big digital signboard up promoting the AWL champions, Drummoyne Devils.
Great.
A few more parties to come. But yeah, just huge. I mean, it's a real family club at Drummoyne, and that was something that really, I guess, appealed to me when I was selecting a club in Sydney. Obviously, being from Melbourne, and I was going to base myself here to help with my Olympic preparations, and Drummoyne were the ones that really stood out because of that family aspect that they have, and I was just really ecstatic to be able to achieve that for the club, alongside some of the older boys like Tyler Martin, Aidan Roach, who were, AJ played 3 Olympic Games, and Tyler was a Rio Olympian. So they'd been in all losing grand finals with Drummoyne. So for them to finally get off the mark as well was really special.
We love hearing that. We love hearing that success. You're a mortgage broker by day. I kind of like this is almost like, water polo Batman by night and everything along those lines. I mean, does the conversation come up much when you're helping people with their mortgages about like, hey, I'll be away for a couple of weeks. I'm just going to an Olympic Games.
Yeah, I got a bit of publicity. I don't know how the commentators got wind of it when I was in Tokyo, but I know that they did mention, I think it might have been during that Croatia game, that I was a self-employed mortgage broker. So I know some of the finance and coffee, forums on Facebook caught wind of it, and that blew up a little bit. But yeah, no, I'm really lucky that I've got a career outside of the pool that's flexible and allows me to balance the two. My clients are great. Like, they're really understanding. I think as long as you're transparent with where you are and what you're doing, and you're responsive to emails, they're okay. It's fortunately, like, one of the positives that did come out of COVID was the ability to do remote lending. So that's also been quite handy for me. It doesn't mean I have to necessarily be in the office or be doing a lot of face-to-face meetings. So, I've been really lucky to be able to juggle the two.
Actually, it would help business. The commentators are giving you a plug during Channel 7, and all of a sudden your phone's blowing up. Congratulations, winning Croatia. By the way, I'm looking at getting a mortgage. So, I'm sure that drives some business. And the one thing too, obviously your partner, yourself, have just recently welcomed a child into the world. How's all that going, Blake? The sleep patterns, everything along those lines. And are they going to be on a plane? They're going to be cheering you on in Paris?
Yeah, I had 2 weeks ago, born on Mother's Day. Little Jude James Edwards was born. It's just been an absolute blessing to both me and my partner, Maddie. We're just completely obsessed and smitten over the little man. Fortunately, they'll be coming over, and we've caught wind that there's going to be a nursery in the village, which will be great. So
great.
We get a bit of family time, on the off days in the village, which will be really nice. But yeah, Maddie will be coming over with her mum, and my parents will be there. So they've got got a unit somewhere in Paris where they'll be staying. But obviously, being a long 6 week tour prior to the game starting, getting them over will hopefully put Dad in a much better mental state prior to the game starting, and hopefully Mum will appreciate a bit of support as well when I can give it.
Great. Good luck charms all around there, hopefully, for you on the ground there in Paris. Blake, we wrap up every interview with a set of get-to-know-you style questions. As always, these are a set of questions that were given to Team Canada athletes ahead of the Rio and the Pyeongchang Olympics. An optional element, if you so do wish, you're a busy man, I get it, but there is a drawing element. If you wish to do it, you can draw a picture of yourself, a teammate, an animal. How are your drawing skills, Blake?
Oh, pretty embarrassing. I might give it to Jude and see if he can put up a better picture than me.
that sounds like that would be a fun idea. So I like that. That's out there if you like. But I'll start off with the first question for you, Blake. Your favourite Olympic moment of all time is?
Question, I would have to say Ian Thorpe's 400 metre gold medal race in Sydney, and then even Athens as well. The way he could just in the last leg of every race, just take it to another gear. I think he kind of really taught me that no matter what your body is going through physically, there's always that, or whatever your mind is telling you, there's always that another gear that you can find. And his ability to just kind of turn it on during races was just really inspiring.
Great. Love that answer. If you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be?
Oh, Melbourne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come back to Melbourne.
Yeah, so I'd love to see an Olympics back in Melbourne.
Yeah, I think, as much as we love Sydney and as we're going to love seeing Brisbane, it's kind of one of those things that I think, I'd love to see it back in Melbourne in our lifetime, So.
I know we're pretty biased down there, but it is the sporting capital of the world.
100% agree. Even as a Tasmanian, I stand firm by saying that Melbourne is that, and to me, the best city in Australia. Just saying. In your spare time, what do you most like to do?
Spare time, I think just be around friends and family. I love to be down the beach. I was lucky enough to have a holiday house. Well, my parents had a holiday house down at Aireys Inlet, which is where they've retired now. So anywhere by the beach and around friends and family, I'm usually in my element.
Beautiful, beautiful. The weirdest instruction a coach ever gave you was?
Weirdest instruction. I used to have an old teammate who used to captain coach by the name of Ryan Moody, and one day he brought us along to the pool just to do a laughing exercise. So it probably threw us all, we were all a bit off guard on it, but essentially we just had to stand there in a circle and then just laugh at the top of our lungs.
Wow. What does that achieve? Is that lung capacity or
food, and just kind of distressing from whatever, personal things you had going on, work.
Wow. Okay.
Stood around a circle and then laughed at each other for a good 5 minutes. So that's probably, the oddest training instruction I've had.
If I knew that was a thing, Blake, I'd hire them to come and laugh at this show, and maybe people would actually find things funny on this. But that's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. There you go. We touched on sort of workouts of a water polo player before, but what is your favourite workout?
Oh, I just love games. I just love to play games. So any scrimmages, training games, that's where I'm having my most fun and enjoying myself.
That works. If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
I'd probably say at the moment, being a Bulldogs fan, probably Luke Beveridge. I'd love to just run around him. I even think currently he's absolutely getting hammered by the media, but I just think he handles it so well, and he always seems to have his back against the wall, but can find a way to pull the Dogs through. And I still have a bit of faith he can do it for us this year. So would love to just sit down, have a conversation with him, and understand his leadership style and how he kind of connects and builds relationships with his players. Not only just kind of as a captain of the Sharks, but if I ever go on as future coaching, I think he'd be a great person to be mentored by.
I think you'd have some connections. We could probably make that happen. I think, like 2-time Olympian, captain of the Sharks, I feel there's something we can do there. Your favorite sandwich is?
Favorite sandwich? Oh, I actually just love like a traditional, like, roast chicken roll, sandwich, some like chili sauce and mayonnaise.
Yeah, good one. I like that. Last one I'll ask you here, Blake. Your favorite sports movie is?
Remember the Titans. It's a classic.
Yes, good one. Is there a water polo movie? I think there was a documentary on the whole blood in the murder in the pool match from the 56 Olympics, I'm pretty sure. But
Russia and Hungary. I haven't seen it because I think might be Hungarian. But yeah, maybe it's time for a modern one to come.
I think so. There needs to be some level of that because I always like to find it's athletes, movies based on their sports. I always try and say like, has James Bond done it? Because usually James Bond's done all the Olympic sports. Hasn't done water polo though. So
look, I watched some of the clips, and I don't think the actors were the best swimmers, to be fair. So I try water polo in the right way, but they definitely got a lot of blood and a lot of violence in there, which is I think the main thing that they were trying to show from that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Blake, before we let you go, quickly, I didn't introduce you to our show mascot, Chairy. Just a bit of inspiration for you, hopefully ahead of Paris. First of all, how do you think Chairy would go in water polo? Do you think the extra legs would help him in the pool?
Oh, definitely. I wouldn't mind having 4 legs to try and keep balance. My shooting efficiency might be a bit better, but we'll just have to see if he floats or not.
Yeah, there you go. You can always just sit on him in between, stints in the pool, basically. But, use him for inspiration. You're welcome along there. Or we can get one to Jude, potentially, and maybe, he'll love that. He'll enjoy a little Cherry. And people want to follow your journey, Blake, social media, anything along those lines, where can people stay up to date with what you've got going between now and the Olympics?
Yeah, definitely. My social media tag's just Blakey, so Blakey, Edwards. So yeah, happy for anyone to follow me. If they want to jump on and follow the journey. They'll probably be spanned with a bit of Jew content at the moment. Looking at babies, then yeah, happy for them to send me a follow. That'd be great.
I'm sure that all the Hey Jude Beatles references will be flowing with all of those, right? So
yeah, it was the first song we played when we got home from the hospital, and
perfect.
Him and both me and his mother had a bit of a cheer after that. But yeah, he's a cute little boy, so we're very happy.
Well, we like to hear that, see that. Blake, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you on the show to learn about your journey. Best of luck for everything to do with Paris. We've got all those fingers, toes, everything crossed that the Sharks are going to come out on top in whatever way that looks like. But we appreciate it, and we'll get you back on afterwards with a gold medal around your neck. Let's put that out into the universe.
That'd be nice. Thanks for having me, Dan.